Hello, my friends, and welcome. Go after. Good evening. I hope today, Wootens Day, has been amazing for you and that you have received all of the energy which you need to find happiness and peace and comfort. These are so important in our modern day lives. Today, we have an amazing question, but before we get after it today, I want to say a big shout out, of course, to New Reality TV and newrealitytv.com, a wonderful collection of a plethora of perspectives that can hopefully provide you with that little piece of intellect to help you obtain or maintain your mental space. As always, I ask if you have some extra coins, feel free to drop them there in the tip jar. As always, if you visit my webpage, NorseWhispers.com, there's an opportunity to do there, as well as pose your own question so that we can make a show about your question and you can win yourself a free t-shirt. You can check out all the details there on my website, NorseWhispers.com. I want to say a big thank you to all of the platforms here. For those of you who liked, followed, subscribed, hit the magic buttons, and did the secret handshakes to actually follow or subscribe, I am very much appreciative. As always, this message, the further it goes out, the better. For those of you joining us on Facebook, you may note that we have the live chat available this evening where you can pose questions that may even further add to the complexity of the topic at which we are going to discuss. Now, the topic is a doozy. Diane has asked a serious question. Now, we get this question from time to time and we do shows about it. So this is kind of rechecking in. So thank you very much for your question, Diane. Your shirt is on the way. Today the question is, why are we here? What's the big deal about a physical life? Well, my friends, time long after we leave it, we are here to learn emotional control, management, and understanding. That's really what we hear. That's why we take in all of the experiences that we do all around us. We see things, we hear things, we smell things, we touch things, and we taste things, right? And all of those experiences are coming into our brain, processing to create an emotion. Believe it or not, all create emotion. Taste, as an example. If we were to eat a ghost pepper, right? And just eat that bad boy, what's going to happen is we may actually adjust our emotional filters to include a little bit of fear and uncertainty, right? Right? Yeah. So there's a multitude of things. Again, the smell, there are many smells in the world that can produce emotion. And some good, some not so good. So all of these things are producing energy registered by the brain that's sent through the filter of our previous present, through that filter to be altered, and then once it's altered by that, it then shoots down, it releases hormones from the heart, and those come up, and the rest of our brain says we feel happy. We're happy, right? Or sad, or mad, or whatever, right? So all of these things kind of happen instantaneously before this energy is actually stored in our memories. The filters, the emotional filters that we have behind our sensory input, also work on our spiritual brain as well. So as we accept the spiritual's connection from the ancestors or the deities themselves, we're actually processing that through a very similar emotional filter. So this is why a lot of times people build up this level of doubt, right? So they're going to push that doubt up there, and that's going to be in the filter, right? And so then when we are contacted by our ancestors, there's this doubt. Maybe I'm just hearing things, or, whatever. My imagination, whatever the case. So all of these things come into play in every one of our experiences, in every present that we experience. Now, our spiritual consciousness, our spiritual self, has been absorbing experiences from before it was you, before it was your physical form. It had a life before you, or you had a life before you, or you had. Anyway, long story short is these spiritual entities retain memories just like a physical form does, right? And so these spiritual memories are kind of embedded inside our physical memories. So a little harder to read for physical, but nonetheless they're there and we can draw on them, or we can learn. We can learn and we can be taught to actually read these spiritual memories instead of our physical ones, and that's a skill. So to answer the question, Diane, the answer to your question is we are here to learn emotional control. We're here to learn how the experiences that we have in our life alter our perspective of the world. Now, one of the things we were talking about, the sensory input coming into the brain, and we said, oh, okay, so all this sensory input comes into the brain. It's routed through these emotional filters, which adjust how we feel, right? Before it goes to processing then drops down, pushes out these hormones into the bloodstream. That comes up and into the brain, where the brain then does this kind of comparison and says, oh, this is how I feel, based on what that chemical composition is. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's a moving target. And that's what we have to remember, is we don't feel the same way a second from now that we did a second ago. As we're traveling through time, our emotional filters and the base DNA at which releases the hormones into the bloodstream are changing. They're in a constant state of flux. We have division and splitting and manipulation and changing. And we know, based on even science has proven nowadays, that DNA can change throughout our lifetime. A lot of it remains the same. The stuff, particularly the stuff we brought from our ancestors, that stuff just stays. But there is big parts of it that can be changed throughout our lifetime. When your mother and father got together and did things, they mixed a snapshot of where their DNA was at that moment in time. So they sent these two samples, if you will, of DNA, and those DNA are then arranged and configured according to the cosmic plan, and lo and behold, biologically you begin to form. Your spiritual entity is communicating this whole time. Remember, our spiritual self is communicated or is connected to the spiritual realm all the time. It never turns off. Whether our physical brain decides to listen to it or not, that's another story. But the idea is that the spiritual brain is connected to the spiritual realm all the time. So it's always receiving communication. I'm always reminded when I think of the spiritual realm and how it kind of functions and works, and particularly how energy moves from individuals. We see a very much a collective knowledge, right? So if I have an experience, i.e. in my life today, and I remember that memory is then connected to my spiritual brain, because my spiritual brain can review it just like my physical one can, and it immediately connects to my ancestral chain. It also connects to other spirits as well as the deities themselves, who have plugged in little energy sources into that original collection of energy called my consciousness, right? So all those things, as soon as I have my experience and I remember it, and my spiritual brain gets a picture of it, it sends it to the spiritual realm almost immediately. My great-grandfather describes the tree Yggdrasil. And for those of you not familiar with Norse legend, it actually stems quite a few different cultures. And that is, it's the center tree of all the realms, of all life. Everything focuses, centers around Yggdrasil. It's in the middle of everything. And Yggdrasil is a tree just like any other tree, in that it has the trunk, this big beefy trunk that comes up and branches start shooting off and all the way out, all the way out till you get to the leaves on the individual branches. Now, these leaves, with the little stem in the middle and the universe and from other entities, and all that energy comes back to the center stem that goes up back into the branch, where it then transmits back all the way down to the trunk, all the way down to the roots. Now, you are the leaf. We are the leaves of the Yggdrasil. We are connected through this center energy stream, or as there are some understandings that refer to this center line as the chakra: crown, third eye, throat, so on and so forth. These chakra all have, where in a leaf you have the veins that kind of go out like this, right? In the body, in the human form, wherever there's a chakra, there's veins, and they go out to the body. This is why when we are practicing with Reiki or the chakra, we understand that the energy that comes into the chakra is a spinning wheel, right? And when energy comes into it, it just spreads it out. It just sends it in all directions. Unless the chakra, of course, is mucked up because we've given ourselves indigestion or we've stressed ourselves to the max, and our chakras aren't spinning and passing energy to affected areas, thereby affecting us with some form of physical ailment. Typically, it is rather close to that chakra. So if we've got stomach pains, chances are we're dealing with the solar plexus not being open. Maybe it is the pelvic or the root chakra, but usually it's somewhere close by, right? And that's the veins that are coming out and distributing this energy to our form. Brings us healing energy to wherever we need it. This is really why Reiki works. Reiki energy, healing, growing, loving, all of these things. Reiki works because we're able to send our energy back up through the tree, over the branches, through the branches. We find the path that goes all the way through all the branches to wherever the other leaf is, and then in it goes, right? In through their crown chakra. So we're all connected to Yggdrasil. We're all connected to Yggdrasil with or without a physical form. Okay, so our spiritual entity is what's connected to Yggdrasil. All this energy goes all the way back from all of the different existences in all of the realms, the dwarves, the elves, the giants, everyone, the gods, everyone, all goes back into the trunk, which winds up at the roots in the well, drinking from the well. And while it's drinking, it's leaving the reflections of all these experiences that it's had in life. This is why Odin would, in the legends, Odin would find the Well of Erd, which was attended to by the Norner sisters, where he would strike a deal with the Norner sisters that he would surrender an eye to drink from the well. Many people say, oh, well, that was Odin getting wisdom. No, not really. What that really was Odin gaining the experiences of all life through Yggdrasil. As he brought these experiences into his mind then processes them in the same way that you and I do our experiences every day. And so he would ponder all of these different experiences and how that interrelated, and how that all worked and what it all does, to find his wisdom, right? So wisdom is simply the application of experiences to knowledge. We know to do something, we know how to do something, but we actually do it. And now we have an emotional thread in the experience. Okay? And so now wisdom becomes partial, kind of an upper level of intellect. At the same time, it also produces a level of emotional intellect. And that's really the key, is emotional wisdom. When do I lose my temper? When do I not? When do I love? When do I... All of these things, there is a particular season for. Jura says, as the rune of time, Jura says that everything has a season. Everything will come into our lives and out of our lives during its season. So the cycle of life. So remember, things don't come into our life, experiences don't happen to us unless we are ready to experience that. I'm always reminded of all of the illusionists of the world, and they create amazing illusions. Thank you so much for all the men and women who do that. I absolutely adore that science. But what is illusion? Illusion is simply the mastery of directing our focus, ours being the audience's focus, where they need it to be so that they can do other things. This is what illusions are. They're a directive of our focus. If we are watching over here, very much like a boxer, if I'm looking to the left and somebody bunks me in the right, youch, right? But if I'm looking at the right when he goes to bunk me in the right this time and I put up my hand, right? It's very much the same thing with experiences. Experiences, if we are focused at looking to the right, we're never going to see what's happening on the left, or vice versa. So the universe is preparing us through experiences that teaches us that we're looking kind of both ways. We may not be looking, and there will be things that we're going to miss in our lives, and that's okay. That's for a reason that we miss certain things. We go, darn, I really wanted to do that. Obviously, there was a reason you didn't. So, many things happen in our lives, and sometimes we get frustrated, and that's understandably. But what we have to remember is the things in our lives, the things that happen to us, the things that happen around us, the things that we experience are there for a reason. This is the whole lesson aspect of life, is that we're learning, we're growing. We've got to remember, you're in a state of evolution. You're evolving to your next state, whatever that state is. So if you're, going to come into, as an example, come into an understanding where you become more empathic, right? You're getting those vibes, you're feeling that energy, you're seeing that energy, and you're really feeling these other people's emotional states. This is empathy. Well, as you come into that, you'll never start really developing into this empath that you were going to be until you are ready to accept those things that make an empath. One of the things, as an example, a very hard struggle for me when I was a young man and being empathic as I was, I couldn't recognize the difference between their feelings and my own. And so I struggled for a very long time. Matter of fact, I struggled for over a decade and a half maybe, trying to understand whose was whose, and What was I supposed to be feeling myself right now? This becomes very convoluted, but when we become open to it, and we ask, of course, the ancestors to come and guide us and grant us that knowledge and that wisdom of how this works, and how can I see things differently, and how can I manage this. As we do that and we become more open to this and more vulnerable, we are simply opening ourselves to the ancestors and allowing them to help us then guide, remember, our focus. Where are we focused? I.e., are we focused in the right spot, in the right direction, to be able to start understanding and really grasping this idea of being or becoming an empath? Now, many people will say and have told me, hey, I was an empath from birth, man. I could always do that stuff. And I just, this, that, and the other thing. That's true. You do have the skill. You had the skill before you were born, right? So it's in our spiritual nature to be this way. But what we have very tendency to do as humans is we doubt it out, right? We doubt it out. Nope. It's just me with a migraine. And, it's just me having a bad day, right? We start doubting it out. And eventually, it kind of fades from our vernacular. Doesn't mean it's gone. It simply means that our focus isn't there. Once we change our focus back to this empathic ability, it'll start picking right back up. Why? Because now we're ready for that. We're ready to accomplish that objective. We're ready to learn that skill again. Maybe even grow in it and become even more empathic and better and longer distances and all kinds of things. There's all types of abilities within you. You were born this way. At the risk of sounding like Lady Gaga here, you were born this way, baby. And we need to, that's what we're doing in our lives, is looking for these things, these experiences, some experience that will help move us in the direction at which we want to go. Not the fates. We're not allowing ourselves to just sit back and become a victim in our own lives. We're taking charge. We're managing the energy into our mind. We're managing how we look at the world, because all this energy coming into our head and altering our emotional filters is going to alter the way we see the world. Our reality, those experiences that we have, are transmitted into our brain the same way everything else is. So if we experience a beautiful mountain, maybe even Mother Denali out in the open Alaska wilderness, we see her in all of her majesty. And what a beautiful sight. If that doesn't bring you a peace and a harmony, then nothing will, right? It's beautiful. But when we experience that, that experience then sets these emotional filters now, and now we see the world through an adjusted emotional filter. Does that make sense? So each moment, those filters are being set, and they change the way our brain interprets the reality at which we see. Okay, and so when we're in a happy mood, we see happy things. When we're in a bad mood, we see bad things. We have to be able to set that emotional filter the way we want to see the world, and not allow ourselves to be driven by other influential energies. All right? So, I hope this has given you some idea of some of the challenges you obviously have to face in this lifetime. We all do, right? But it is winnable. We can do this, right? And you are a specialist because you have something that no one else who has ever lived has. Can you guess what it is? I bet you can. It is your DNA. Because remember, your DNA, when your brain drops that signal down to your heart to release into the hormones, right? That's bouncing off your DNA. Your DNA is what dictates what hormones go out in what quantities. Those arrive at the brain, and we whip up our little recipe book. We find out what that chemical composition means to us, and we set our filters. We set our aura border. We set the things that are going to help us interpret the world we live in, right? If that chemistry is constantly changing, sometimes you may get to a place where you're like, I don't have this chemical composition thing in my recipe book. It kind of looks like that, but it's a little different. Notice how as you age, your emotional, the way you look at certain events kind of changes as you go. Why? Because your DNA is changing at the base. It's releasing a different set of chemistry into your body, and your brain is handling that chemical composition differently. So this is really our mission here in these physical forms, is to gain these experiences, to control the emotion, and allow us to see our world the way we want to see it. Thereby, I think my mother used to use a wonderful phrase of creating our own reality. Although we're not creating reality, we're creating our interpretation of that reality. And we see the world the way we want to see it, not the other way around. So, I hope this has helped. Diane, your shirt, as I mentioned, is on its way. If you have a question, if there's something that's spurring your thoughts, feel free to hit my website, northwhispers.com, scroll all the way to the bottom, look to the, what would that be? That would the left big orange button that says ask questions. Hit that button and ask me a question, and if we make a show about it, I'll send you a t-shirt that you can have yourself, and we'll get some answers for you. If you're and it's completely anonymous. You don't have to provide any contact information other than I need an email address to send your response back. All right? So ask those questions. Feel free. Reach out. Let me help, and we will all grow together, because remember, everything I teach you, I've taught myself, right? And everything that I'm teaching you, you're teaching me in return. All right? So have a wonderful remainder to your Wootens Day for those of you who still have some of it. Enjoy it. We will see you again tomorrow as we celebrate the strength of Thor, because it's Thor's Day. So we'll see you tomorrow. Love and light. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.